Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're going to unpack an incredibly concise, but honestly super powerful guide on government procurement best practices. Now, you might be thinking procurement sounds a bit dry, but the source material we're working with today is actually a rigorously tight framework for how public projects absolutely must be handled. It's brief, just a couple of sentences, but we're going to break down this text step by step and uncover the rock-solid logic it demands. Think about it. This is kind of the ultimate question for any civic project, right? When a local government sets out to, say, build a new highway or upgrade the public schools, the very first real hurdle is figuring out who is actually going to do the work. Well, today we'll see how our source material provides a direct, strict, chronological roadmap to answer this exact question. And spoiler alert, it doesn't offer a polite suggestion, it gives us a mandate. Let's start with Section 1, Government Procurement Best Practices. Right out of the gate, the source text explicitly calls for writing a guide on best practices for government procurement. By framing it this way, the text is telling us that this whole process requires strict adherence to established rules. Successful government projects don't just happen by accident, and they certainly don't happen by winging it. They require a definitive standard of excellence right from the starting line. Which brings us to Section 2, Understanding Whole Life Cost. So here is our core concept, whole life cost. The text specifically states that these best practices have to be executed using this exact metric. We aren't just talking about a simple price tag here or the cheapest initial bid for pouring concrete. No, the text mandates this comprehensive metric as the central evaluating tool. It literally means looking at the absolute total financial picture of a project over its entire lifespan. After all, it's taxpayer money on the line, and the true cost of a new school obviously includes maintaining it for decades to come. The logic of our source material creates a sharp, honestly unavoidable contrast here. On one side, you have the safety and security of evaluating a project with a complete financial picture, using that whole life cost. On the flip side, you have the massive risk of moving forward without actually knowing what you're getting into financially. Building a new civic center without knowing the long-term maintenance costs, according to the text, that's simply unacceptable in the realm of government best practices. Moving right along to Section 3, Cost Before Tenders. This is an absolute rule. Here is the absolutely crucial point. The project must know the cost before opening for tenders. I really want to highlight the word must here. The source isn't saying it's a good idea or, try to do it if you have the time. It is explicitly stating that knowing this whole life cost is a non-negotiable prerequisite. You literally cannot even begin to ask for bids. You can't open those tenders until that cost is completely understood and locked in. So, the process flows in a very specific, unbreakable sequence. Step 1, you have to know the cost, using that comprehensive whole life cost metric. Only after that is done do you move to Step 2, opening for tenders. And only by completing those steps in that exact order can you ever hope to reach Step 3, the final decision phase. This strict order of operations is exactly what ensures taxpayer dollars aren't committed blindly.
And that takes us to Section 4, the best reasonable bidder.
According to the text, the whole point of doing all that prep work and knowing the cost beforehand is to decide on the best reasonable bidder. And catch that phrasing, it doesn't just say the cheapest bidder. It specifically says the best reasonable bidder. The logic here is totally airtight. It's only by first establishing the whole life cost and strictly refusing to open tenders until you have that number that a project can finally make a truly informed decision on who should win the contract. The preparation completely dictates the quality of the final choice. To wrap this all up, our blueprint looks like this. You commit to best practices, you use whole life cost as your main metric, you absolutely refuse to open tenders until that cost is known, and finally, you use that foundational knowledge to select the best reasonable bidder. This is an unbroken chain of logic from our source text, entirely designed to safeguard public resources. I want to leave you with a final thought straight from the core logic of everything we've just covered. In government procurement, guessing is never a best practice. So ask yourself, if we ignore the whole life cost up front, can we ever truly find the best reasonable bidder?